Anyways, how are you?
I'm fine.
Okay,
How are you?
good, real good. So, yeah, thanks for meeting. I just wanted to, I'm not a big email fan, so corresponding over email is not always ideal. I just don't always have the capacity and the schedule, so thanks for meeting. If you wanted to, I don't have your number like just sitting there, so I don't want to just call and be like, hey, we can go out for a coffee or something if you wanted to, because this isn't always like the best. But how can I assist you at this point? I've gotten all of your things that you've uploaded to evidence.com from Crawford's, so I just want to now find out where do we go from here.
It's really up to you. You're the one that's supposed to do the investigation. So my opinion is that there was no investigation up to this point. So
An internal or criminal? Like which, when we say investigation?
no IA investigation.
Okay, so I can catch up to speed on that one, okay? So I wrote down everything that you said so I understand kind of like how we went from point A to point B, right? Looked at everything that we have, kind of looked to figure out, what we got from Lieutenant Dykstra, Billy Caldwell, and stuff like that. So, and then trying to, write all of your objections out. So a couple things I want to cover with you.
Okay.
And then a couple remedies I want to offer. So first and foremost, I like you. Not everybody does. I think one guy in particular doesn't care for you, right? So when I got into this, I was kind of rejecting the notion that you're just a pissed off Karen, for lack of a better term, right? The fact that you work for Intel lets me know that you're not a moron, right? So I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, what is going on here? At first glance, this case is not it's not a capital case by any means. And then I'm wondering, well, did you want your girlfriend arrested? Like, most people would be happy that their girlfriend wasn't arrested or charged for an offense or found because, and then I thought, oh, okay, well, let me find out. So here's what's become apparent. And I don't want you to sit here with me thinking that I am the end all. I'm going to propose something to you as a challenge, right?
All right.
Your engineer brain should be happy to prove me wrong, okay? We have a disconnect here, and that disconnect is your understanding of how the criminal law works or how our internal policies work.
Okay.
I'm making an assumption. I have an engineer brain. I have a lot of engineer friends. I speak fluently. My son is an engineer brain, right? If we're in the manufacturing process and there are 5 steps that have to occur in a particular sequence, there's zero deviation. And if you deviate from that, you don't have a product to sell, and then we all lose our jobs. So in law or in operations here, our policies are not rigid, right? They are a kind of a default setting. So in the absence of anything, generally this is what we want. But then we do have people in place, like our watch commander who's out there right now. That watch commander has the legal authority to deviate from policy if he deems it to be necessary. The whole person that can make that decision is them, right? And they are accountable to the chief. If we violate our own policies out of necessity, it's not a problem, right? So when it comes to some of these things, there are rules. A good one is the translator, right? If that crime isn't, that's not something that we're focusing attention on because it's not really germane. If your car gets broken into and it's a $200 stereo and there's blood, we're not going to test the blood for DNA to figure out who stole the stereo because it's a business choice, right? It would be cost prohibitive to try to solve all of those crimes because of what it would take for DNA testing. Now that irritates people who are like, but that's my stereo, right? But that's just 300,000 people, you have to make those cutoffs, so we have to sometimes explain to people because they watch TV and they think that we have this computer that once it puts your blood into the system, it pops up a satellite links, and I know exactly where you are, and more importantly, me and my partner with high heels can just go to your house, force you to come over, you're gonna have a confession in 30 minutes, and then we take you to the DA's office. And it doesn't work quite that streamlined. But there will be times when we will have disagreements about stuff, and that's my job. My job is to look at, if things occur, are they errors or are they deliberate, what we call a discipline issue? If a young officer lacks the experience to do something well, right, we chalk that up to training issues, right? The person who is affected by it really won't care. But from an operational standpoint, we have a duty to coach, to mentor, to develop. We're not going to fire people over mistakes. Same thing with maybe more veteran people who just kind of get complacent. One of the pitfalls of experience is knowing we're not going to get anything at the end of the day from this, right? And so sometimes they will maybe not put effort in, knowing that at the end of the day, this is not a case that's going to go forward. Now, between you and I was surprised that our prosecutor filed on that case for your girlfriend. That was shocking to me because it was, it's not the crime of the century, let's just say that. No. And I'm not trying to put words into your mouth, but my feelings about this, you feel that they came in here and just basically told 2 hours of lies to the police to try to get her in trouble. And that's what it would appear to be. Now, legally, that's not a false report. They're entitled to their opinions. They put that on, that this is what happened, right? But the fact that they bit off on it, I was very surprised, right? Now, if there is a beef that you have, ultimately, from a legal standpoint, your beef is with the prosecutor's office, that why would you file on this case? Now, the court officer, that was all the uploads, the interviews, right? They really kind of got to the crux of the issue. Are you afraid of your mom? Like, no, mom's mad because how dare dad bring his girlfriend? Really is kind of like, that's what they're really talking about. And that's why they dismissed the case with the classification that they did, right? Dismissal with the option that it could be reopened, and guess what? The victims never wanted to have it refiled, and luckily statute of limitations, like, done deal at this point. So in regards to Officer Fairclaw, he tried to do an investigation, but somebody was on a speakerphone telling your girlfriend not to talk to the police. So that was kind of the extent of his investigation at that point, and then he just submits charges. On the submittal process, and this is where my challenge for you, my opportunity, I can sit here all day and just tell you everything's kosher, or you can participate with us. You can learn our systems. You can, if you want to volunteer, if you want to do some ride-along, see how it actually works, because I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want you to actually walk out of here at some point, right? I don't want you thinking, and it's a personal thing for me. This is my home. I grew up here. This is the apartment I've given blood, sweat, and tears for. If you think that we're dirty and corrupt, I want to try to change your heart and your mind about that. Not through explaining to you processes. I want you to actually think that, feel that, believe it. You should think we pride ourselves on having a good department here. So what can I do for you to get you over that hump of disbelief?
I've taken your police safety course before here.
What about the Citizens Academy?
Would you be interested in doing that? No, but I do know somebody who's in it.
Okay.
So I understand that, first of all, this is extremely low crime. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't even know why it was charged. And actually...
we're both surprised that it got charged,
so
right?
The fact that the guy wrote in the report that she will be charged for this, that's actually a violation of the law, and your prosecutor, if that was true.
Well, and this is where this is something I need you to understand.
Right. So I'll let me finish it.
Okay.
I actually turned him into the bar because that's an actual ethics violation. What I learned from that was that they basically blew it off.
Because it's not. You're mistaken about that. And that's what I just, and
No,
there's no
no.
gentle
They
way.
blew it off. They blew it off not because that it's not a violation of law. It's because the prosecutor never did that. The prosecutor says, no, we ignored that, and we just, the only person that we treated as a victim was Jew, and we did give her rights, therefore we followed the law. The Arizona State Bar, unlike AC Post, if a prosecutor blows off the state bar, they'll find out they're no longer a lawyer. So they took it very seriously, and they said, we followed the law. And the moment I heard that, I said, I already kind of knew that because someone in your court system had given me some bullshit, and I actually believed it. And I go like, it's hard to believe, but I'll believe it. Right? And then I found out, it's like, the moment the bar told me that, I said, oh, that's exactly what happened. I knew it. So it's unwise for your officer to put that in there because that's an ethics violation, and of course I turned him in.
Well, and that's what we're here to discuss, right? When that term is used, right, there's a parlance that people in operations will use that within internally is understood. Internally is understood. That word doesn't have the same legal significance. It's not legally binding in the sense that you are.
Oh no,
having to,
I absolutely know it's not.
And that's what we're talking about, is making sure that you understand. If we have disagreements about terms, right?
All right.
And it's understood, and we're just like, well, that's not what it meant. That's kind of like,
All right.
we there's no other like grounds to go, right? When we investigate and say, hey, we've looked at this and we understand how we went from point A to point B, and there's nothing nefarious, there's nothing like, he didn't just blow off this investigation like he attempted to. He was just cut off from, getting statements that maybe, hypothetically, maybe if he had gotten a statement the other side of the story, maybe it was closed out with no charges filed. We don't know, right?
But he got the other side of the story. Elizabeth told him point blank that this was nothing.
No, I'm saying from the main suspect, right? By what we would call suspect, right?
Arizona Constitution says that you don't have to say a word.
I understand. I'm saying we have, when one neighbor calls and we get their story and we want to go talk to the other neighbor.
So the
It
problem
becomes
is,
very efficient if we just say, hey, what's going on? And they tell us the other story. And then you're like, okay, we're not at a police issue.
then the cop shouldn't have showed up so keyed up. And from day one, not even talking to two witnesses, says you will be charged.
Because law demands it, right? It's a DV requirement. So if the relationship exists, which it did, because they have shared, children, right? And the allegation is there by somebody who wants to be the victim, which he did, right? We have to, we're bound by law. We don't have a choice, right? What happens after that is out of the hands of the police. As previously stated, I was shocked because we've had better cases that the prosecution did not do anything with, and that it went as far as it did was surprising, right?
Well, I can't turn the prosecutor in for bad choices. I can turn him in for ethics violations.
Right, which was determined wasn't a violation. They
Only because they basically
Right.
blew off the three people and there's only one victim. And that person was given their rights. That's why they blew it off.
Well, I'm just saying. So that has been asked, answered,
All right?
maybe not satisfactory, but it has.
No,
That road is
the
closed.
bar made the right call because what the prosecutor didn't violate the ethics rule.
Right. And so with us, right, in regards to this case, is it going to be satisfactory to your level? No, but that's not the standard.
Right.
He did his job. He didn't not do his job. But the errors that are being pointed out don't constitute anything that are going to get disciplined. We're not going to fire Officer Fairclough for that.
I'm not, and I am certainly not asking for him to be fired.
Right.
Right.
And so, and then as far as the sergeant approving the reports or these missing reports or any of that, I don't know if I've done a good enough job explaining, but this is where I want you to, I don't want you to take my word for it.